Hello, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I disagree with some aspects of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity argues that autism is just a difference that should be celebrated. The neurodiversity movement puts autism in the same category as other differences such as sexual orientation. The neurodiversity movement is very closely aligned with the social model of disability, which argues that putting in place reasonable adjustments is all it takes to allow the person to have a good life and to access society. I want to state very clearly, right from the very beginning, that I am not completely against neurodiversity, and I'm not completely against the social model of disability. It is true that autism is a difference, and that difference should be accepted. I'm all for society making reasonable adjustments to make autistic people's lives easier. But I'm against the idea that autism should be celebrated. I'm against the idea that the medical model has nothing good to offer. What we should be celebrating is individual autistic people as human beings who every single day fight against their condition and achieve things despite their disability. That's what we should celebrate, not the autism. Autism is a disability. The autism I experience is a disability. For many people, autism is a disability, but this is not shown in the media or on TV because it is not the message that people want to hear. Autism is heavily sugar-coated, sanitised, glossed over. The autism that is shown on TV is feel-good autism. Autistic people achieving great things. Autistic people with super strength. But this is not the reality for many people with autism, including myself. Even if reasonable adjustments were put in place, I still live with a brain and a nervous system that do not function as nature intended. I'd still be very, very nervous, very, very anxious with obsessive thoughts. No matter what society we have, I'd still be disabled. I might be relatively less disabled if society puts in place a lot of support and adjustments. If I won a lottery and I could go and live wherever I wanted with a big fence all around my house, in a really, really quiet setting, I wish. Well, if that happened, my life would be a lot more comfortable. But I'd still be autistic, I'd still be disabled, and my life would still be better if my brain had developed the way nature intended, if I could relate to the world meaningfully, in an integrated way. My strengths as a person, as an individual, as a human being, would have been there even if I was not autistic. My verbal abilities, my energy, my curiosity, my get up and go, all of this would have still been there, but I would have been able to put it to better use. I use these attributes to fight against my condition, to try my hardest not to let my condition get in the way and prevent me from doing what I want to do. However, I always come up against the block of my condition. Because of my condition, my ceiling will always be that bit lower than for a neurotypical person. There's only so far I can push against my condition before it comes back to bite me. with huge amounts of stress, and a sensory overload. This is hardwired into my brain, and this is something that I'd rather not have, and if a cure existed that was not invasive, I'd accept. This might not sit comfortably with the neurodiversity movement and this idea that autism is just a personality quirk that should be celebrated, something positive. People who disagree with neurodiversity are often labelled aggressive, seen as pariahs for not following the accepted line, but we do exist. Not everyone agrees with neurodiversity. And as an articulate person, or autistic person, I'm speaking not just for myself, I'm speaking for as many autistic people who are not able to put forward their views, but whose autism is profoundly disabling and causes them all sorts of problems. People with autism who are often not really given airspace because we're not fashionable autism. We don't have any special skills, but we do exist, and we fight every single day against our condition, and it's hard. There is nothing to celebrate about autism for these people and for myself. But I am determined as a person. I am very, very determined to try my hardest every single day, to try my hardest to overcome my condition. My strength of character and my personality, this is who I am as a person. It comes before my condition. I exist before my autism. I'm a person, first and foremost. Yes, my autism is part of my identity. Yes, it does shape everything I do. But it does not define me. That's the crucial distinction. If I didn't have autism, I may well, I would have had different experiences, and obviously your experiences shape who you become. But my life would have been much, much easier without all these problems. And that's being realistic. The other thing I want to say is that the special abilities that are talked about as particularly autistic strengths, such as pattern recognition and visual spatial skills, are not present in all autistic people. Actually, these skills belong to you're not present in all autistic people, and it's only a subset of autistic people who have these abilities. Another subgroup of autistic people that is often not given airspace on TV have particular difficulties in these areas because they have a non-verbal learning difficulties, non-verbal learning problems. This means that they're better verbally than non-verbally and really struggle with visual spatial skills and pattern recognition, where's Wally test, those type of things. The block design test, which people with autism are said to be good at. When I took that test, when I was 10 years old, I got a 2. Just on the first percentile. Very, very low. So I don't fall into that stereotype that autistic people are really good at block design. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Because you've got to remember that all autistic people are different. And there is not just one autism, there's a plethora of autisms. Many, many different autisms but the autism that's given viewing space and media attention is one particular autism that makes good viewing. Because it's more interesting to show an autistic person who's really, really good at block design than it is to show an autistic person who's simply good at writing essays. You know, there's more of a wow factor in an autistic person who's good at block design. But this isn't representative. And when an autistic person like myself does not see anyone on TV that I can really identify with, this is very, very alienating. But I've met many other autistic people, like myself, from the groups I go to, who also struggle with these skills, these visual spatial skills. They do exist, we do exist, so why aren't we given viewing space on TV? We should be given viewing space, but we're not. And this helps to encourage these stereotypes, which become harmful, because they're only showing one side of the picture. And just as another autistic person is entitled to say that their condition is just a difference for them, I should also be allowed to say that I think my condition is a disability, and if a cure existed, I would accept one. It would be nice if this viewpoint is represented more in the media, so that I can see, so that I can see something I can relate to. Because it can feel very lonely when everything you see or hear about autism is geared towards this ultra-positive, celebratory narrative about autism, which completely overlooks how very, very disabling autism can be for people like myself. I can't hold a full-time job. My parents organised my life for me. I need a lot of support. Because of my autism, I've never had a relationship. It's only very recently that I've actually made a friend. With someone else who has Asperger's. Before a couple of years ago, I didn't have any real friends at all. As I say, I've never had a relationship, despite the fact that I might want kids. It's probably very unlikely going to happen because of my autism. I'm not saying it won't happen. It might happen. But my autism puts all sorts of barriers in my way. I find it incredibly difficult to relate to people. Despite appearances of surface sociability, it's very, very difficult. And that's why growing up, I never had any friends. There's nothing positive about that. I get very, very overloaded incredibly easily. Noise, sound, light, movement. Just walking down the street. I'll talk about this more in another video on sensory issues. But, there's nothing positive about that. I can't deal with any change. I need everything to be controlled. I need routine. I need order. There's nothing positive about that. The positives are to do with myself and not my autism. So the fact I get interested in things, that's because as a person, I'm very curious. That's part of my personality, I think. If I wasn't autistic, I'd still be curious and still be interested. It's got nothing to do with my autism. The fact I get obsessed with things, that's arguably because of the way my brain works, because that's to do with the autism. But getting obsessed with things is actually counterproductive. It would be far better for me if I didn't get so obsessed with things, and if I was a little bit more relaxed about things in general. Because being obsessed with things makes me very, very anxious. The one positive is that my special interests have helped me deal with the negatives of my condition by providing a motivating force. But if I wasn't autistic, I'd likely still have these interests. They would just be not as intense, probably. So to wrap up then, I want to reiterate how disabling my autism is for myself, and how people who disagree with neurodiversity, or rather not disagree, I'll put that again because I expressed that a little bit. What I wanted to say is that I don't completely disagree with everything neurodiversity has to say, but I do disagree with the fanatical, extreme, one-sidedness that a subgroup of neurodiversity enthusiasts endorse. Autism is a difference, yes. Autism should be accepted, yes. But please understand that not everyone sees autism as something to be celebrated. And this is fine as well. This should be given viewing space as well. People who have this particular perspective should not be maligned. It's very, very important that we're given viewing space and that people hear and listen and understand our perspective, which is just as legitimate as someone saying that they think their autism is a difference. Thank you for listening.